We continue now at the top of Daf Samach Aleph in Meseches Nedarim. This is Nedarim Daf 69a. The Brisa is continuing to discuss the case of a Nara Hamorasa, who, generally speaking, both her father and her husband together annul her vows, and the Brisa is discussing different scenarios where one of those two individuals die, either the father or the husband. And the Brisa says as follows: Shama Avia v'Heferlo. Let's say the father hears about the neder and he annuls it for her. V'lo hispik habal lishmoa, and the husband doesn't hear about it at shemes, and he dies. He dies before he hears about the neder. So chozer ha'av u'meifer chelko shel baal. So the Brisa says that the father is allowed to go ahead and he's allowed to annul the portion of the husband. That portion of the neder that the husband would have annulled, the father can now annul. Amar Rabbi Nosson, and Rabbi Nosson says on this, Hein divrei Beis Shammai. That's actually the opinion of Beis Shammai. But Beis Hillel, Beis Hillel say, Ein yachol lahafir, he is not able to annul. Some have the gears of Ein yachol lahafir klal, means to say the father is not allowed to annul at all. And the Gemara continues, you see from this brisa the answer to the question we had on the previous daf, that it actually is a machlokas tanoim. Shema Mino, you see from this last part of the Brisa, Beis Shammai Megaz Gayis, according to Beis Shammai, when the husband annuls the vow in a situation of Erusin, it's Megaz Gayis, meaning he's annulling 50% of the vow, and then the father does the other 50%. Beis Hillel Miklash Kolish, and according to Beis Hillel, so when the husband does it, he's weakening the entire neder, and then again, when the father comes along in partnership, that takes care of annulling the entire neder. Shema Mino, and the Gemara says, indeed, you do see that it's a machlokas Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, this very question. And the Rosh explains, Hein divrei Beis Shammai, this is the opinion of Beis Shammai, Desfiru lahu megaz gayas, because Beis Shammai hold megaz gayas, meaning again, when the father annuls the vow, he's annulling 50%, his portion. So when the father annuls his portion, the portion of the husband still remains fully, that half remains. Now when the husband dies, the father inherits that, and he's able to annul the portion of the husband. Aval Beis Hillel savri miklash kolish, but Beis Hillel say no. When the father annuls the vow, he's just weakening the entire vow. V'keven delo efshar denishar chelak habal shalim. So now you have a situation where the portion of the husband, it didn't remain as a complete portion. So ein bo kadei leho risho la'av. It's not possible to then give it over as an inheritance to the father. V'lo tafsa bazachia. It's not something that you can really be zocha in. Ve'eino av yachol lahafer chelak habal. That's why the father is not able to annul the portion of the husband in this particular case, again, because it's a situation of miklish kolish. Now, even though the hafar of the father really is nullified over here, because the husband died, once it didn't all happen in the lifetime of the two of them, really you can say that first annulment was nothing. Kevan shlo hefer habal, since the husband again wasn't made for his portion. Mikol mokom miyad kishahafer ha'av, nevertheless, says the Rosh, immediately when the father annulled, miklish kolish chelek habal, that weakened the portion of the Baal, and the portion of the Baal, the portion of the husband, it cannot be given over as an inheritance to the father at this point in time, according to Beis Hillel. And the Rosh points out, Aval Bereisha the Brisa, but in the earlier part of the Brisa, Heicha Dahafer Habal V'Meis, there was a case over there where the husband annulled the vow and then he died, and there we said, Denisrogna Rishos La'av, Umefer Lakol, we said that there, the father does get the power to be mefer and to annul the entire thing. V'lo Amrinan Miyad Shehafer Habal Miklesh Kolish Chelak Ha'av, we don't say in that case that because of the fact that the husband was mefer, so therefore everything weakens and it doesn't go over to the father, V'shuvein Lo Hafara, Kishameis Habal, and there's no longer an opportunity to annul it once the husband dies. We don't say that. Why? It's only when the chelek habal, the portion of the husband, is weakened through the hafar of the father. That's when we say ein ha'av yachol lizkosbo. That's when we say that the father is not allowed to be zoche. Aval bereisha sho'av kayim, but in the first part of the brisa, where the father is alive, yacholu lahafer chalko, he's still able to annul his portion, afagav de miklash kolish, even though it was weakened with the annulment of the husband. V'agav zenami mefer chelek habal, and through this he's able to annul the portion of the husband as well, even if you hold miklash kolish. And what the Rosh is saying is that in a situation where the husband annulled his portion, even if we hold miklash kolish, that annulment goes through the entire neder and weakens the entire neder, but there we say that the father does have the ability to annul his own portion, and then we apply the concept of agav, and we say since the father can annul his portion, he can also annul the portion of the husband. That's why it works in that earlier case in the Brisa. And the Gemara continues, Boy, Rava asks the following question. Yesh she'ela behekem or ein she'ela behekem. Is it possible to do she'ela in a situation where the person upheld the neder, let's say, of his daughter? So in that case, if he upheld the neder, can he ask a chacham and undo that upholding of the neder or not? And the Gemara continues, Imtim salomar yesh she'ela behekem. If you say it is possible to do she'ela by hekem, even when you uphold the neder, you can undo that. So yesh she'ela b'hafir or ein she'ela b'hafir. Is it possible to do she'ela? Let's say the person annulled the neder, and now he wants to take that back. He wants to take that back, the annulment. Is that possible? And the Gemara says, Tashma, come and hear the following proof. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Nishalin ala hekem, you are able to do she'ela on hekem. You can go to a chacham and undo the upholding of the neder. V'ein nishalin ala hefir. However, you're not allowed to ask and undo the annulment of the neder. Once you annul the neder, so then the neder is already batel, it's nullified, and you can't ask, you can't undo that. And the Gemara continues, Boy, Rabba asks the following question, Kayim lechi. Let's say the person says, I'm upholding it for you, I'm upholding it for you. So he says it twice. Now, generally speaking, the first statement is all you need. The second statement is meaningless. However, Vinishal al hakama rishona, but then he goes ahead and asks on the first upholding, so he undoes the first upholding. So mahu, so what's the halacha? Do we then say that the second time he said Kayim lechi, that second statement actually takes effect, and it is still upheld? And the Gemara says, Tashma, come and hear the following proof. The Yomar Rava, because Rava said, Im nishal ala rishona, if they do she'ela on the first neder, so shniya chala olav, so the second neder is chal. And the Mefarish explains, Tashma Amar Rava, come and hear the Rava says, V'perek ve'elu mutarin shvua shelo ochel shvua v'chulu. Let's say a person says a shvua that I'm not going to eat, he says it twice. The Amar Rava says over there, Nishal al rishona, if you ask and you undo the first shvua, so shniya chala olav, so the second one's going to be chal. Hachanami here also, Im nishal al hakam rishona, shniya chala olav. If he asks and he undoes the first upholding of the neder, so even though he undid that, the second one will be chal. And the Gemara continues, Boy, Rabba asks the following question, Kayim lechi umufar lechi. Let's say he says, I'm upholding the neder for you and I'm annulling the neder for you. V'lotechel hakama le'imkein chol hafar. And then he also says that the upholding should not take effect unless the annulling takes effect. So mahu, what would be the halacha in such a situation? And the Rosh over here explains, Kayim lechi umufar lechi v'lotechel hakama le'imkein techel hafar. Mahu vada imamar kayim lechi umufar lechi. Says the Rosh, if the person just says, Kayim lechi umufar lechi, I'm going to uphold it for you and I'm going to annul it for you. He doesn't say that last line that the hakama shouldn't take effect unless the hafara takes effect. So in that case, pshita dechol hakama shamar betchila. It's obvious, again, if you just say Kayim lechi and mufar lechi, that the Kayim is the one that's going to take effect and he is upholding the neder. Beshuv lo tachol hafara. At that point, the annulment will not take effect. Even according to Rabbi Yossi, who goes by the conclusion of a person's words, the last thing that the person said, and both of them should be chal, that's by karbonos, because there we say that both actually can be chal, even one after the other. He can bring with the value, with the monetary value, an ola and a shlamim. Here where you can't have one bichal after the other, these are exclusive. They're mutually exclusive of one another. So Rabbi Yossi would certainly admit that we follow the first thing the person says, and in this case the first thing that was said was the Kayim lechi, was the upholding of the neder, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Tes Amud Beis.